Welcome to Divorce with a Twist, where we smash the stigma of divorce and focus on how to move on and live your best life. I'm your host, certified life coach and divorce attorney, Shandy Arguelles. Today, I'm bringing you a very special guest, Sarah Siegert, the friendship coach. Sarah's here to let you know that making friends after divorce or later in life for any reason is possible. Join our conversation here.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, so I'm a friendship coach for expats, so for people who moved abroad mainly. But if you boil it down, really, if you look at moving abroad, really what it is, it's just a incredibly huge change in your life. So I help people basically who have gone through a very big kind of life transition, life changing situation to make friends. And yeah, so I am known as the friendship coach. That's correct. And yeah, that's what I help my people with.
Yes, and as you know, most of my listeners or my clientele, their big life change is divorce at some period. And feeling alone after divorce is very common. And some people really believe that making friends late in life or, after divorce when they're grappling with a new identity is truly impossible. They believe that.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
I mm.
go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that's completely understandable. I think it is, generally speaking, obviously, when we are adults and we get older, it is becoming more difficult to make friends. And it is I think, a very well known idea that making friends as adults is very difficult. So I can completely understand if, you know, it feels very true to you that you find it impossible to make friends.
And as the friendship coach, you know that that's 100% untrue, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think it is kind of my mission as well to challenge that belief because it is, as you say, it is not true for sure. It is possible to make friends after divorce, after you moved abroad, when you're older. It might become more challenging, but it is definitely not impossible. And it is something that I helped lots of my clients with, and they have all achieved their results and made new friends. So it's absolutely possible. Yeah.
Yes, and I know about your program and was surprised at how, I mean, it's just universal, whether it's moving abroad or divorce or some other reason, or just because you want to find, connection. There was so much overlap. So why don't you go into, everyone wants to know, right? How, if you're looking to make friends, they want to know, how do I do this?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So my program, I help people by guiding them through my three-step process. And the three-step process, so basically starts with the relationship that you have with yourself. So every relationship that you have might be friendships or might be romantic relationships, it doesn't matter, but any relationship that you have always starts with yourself and how the quality of the relationship that you have with yourself. So I really focus on helping my clients with their self-confidence, with their self-beliefs. For example, it wouldn't, it wouldn't be beneficial for you to straight away go out there and meet people and then not be in the right place in terms of having the right relationship with yourself, because you would, be maybe frustrated very easily, defeated if someone actually doesn't choose to engage with you any further. So the first step is always to work on the relationship that you have with yourself, to work on becoming a person who loves themselves and who accepts themselves with all the strengths, but with all the not so nice parts about ourselves as well. So that is always the first and most important part that I work with my clients on.
Yes, I
And
would
then,
agree.
yeah. And then the second part is, because really it's so interesting. We tell ourselves making friends is really difficult, but actually it is a very simple process. You just need to go out and meet people and build a connection with them. So it's, it sounds very simple, but obviously it isn't always easy because of all the kind of worries that we have, or the doubts that come up for us during the process. So that again leads back to the first step. If you have a low self-confidence or loads of limiting beliefs or doubts about yourself, then the worries that you will experience during the process of meeting people and getting yourself out there will be a lot more dominant, a lot more difficult to overcome. So the second step, as I said, very simply to just go out and meet people. And that can be, for example, I always encourage people to keep it very simple, to not make it even more difficult than it already is. So what are, for example, the people you have in your local neighborhood, in your area? So for example, obviously if you moved, it might be you could introduce yourself to your new neighbors or have a look at some local cafes, some local parks, and really use the resources that are in your closest approximate,
Now,
area.
I've run across people having limited beliefs in this
Mm-hmm.
area or this ability. I'll hear, oh, well, I live in a small town. There's just no new people. There's nowhere for me to go to meet anybody. It's just, there's nothing.
Yes.
So do you
Yeah.
come across that as well? People have your doubts come up.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting because it could be for some people who live in a small town, they say that this is very challenging, whereas for some people who live in a bigger town, then this is very challenging for them. So it doesn't quite matter what the circumstances are, if it's a small town or a big town or a massive city, it all can be a challenging circumstance, it all can be a barrier. It just depends how you look at it. And I would just encourage people to challenge that belief and to see, is it actually true that I have no one? Like if you look at the people that live in the city, so even if it's a small town, there might be 10,000 people. Is it really true that from these 10,000 people, or even if it's 5,000 or less, is it really true that you can physically not communicate or get in touch or connect with any of those people? And even if it is, then that's fine. Then you just concentrate on something different. You might be able to use the town that is the closest and start going to meetups, going to activities, finding a new hobby. So even if it's true that you can't connect with anyone in your little town, don't let that hold you back from meeting new people. Then get creative and maybe find some other ways that you can connect with people somewhere else.
What do you think about online? Is that a good way to meet people? There's all these meetups and groups and programs that want to give community type environment. Or those good places to meet people and make friends?
Yeah, I think I could always recommend to have a look initially on online meetups. There are loads of different, obviously there's social media, which is huge, which some people use to connect with people. Then there are some friendship apps that people use. There's Facebook, there are Facebook groups, there is Meetup. So I think it is helpful to use online kind of resources initially. But what I would suggest is to move that online connection that you have initially built into the real life, into an offline setting, if you feel safe to do so. Obviously, you need to potentially be cautious and make sure that you are safe. But if you feel that this is something that you would feel comfortable to do, then I would always encourage to move into the kind of real life situation as soon as possible, because it is easier for us to build a connection if we see someone and actually engage with them in person. So meet people, have that initial connection with them, and obviously loads of barriers might come up for you there. And I also want to say, obviously, doing something that is out of our comfort zone. So if you have been going through a divorce and you find yourself in this position now where you feel lonely and you are physically maybe even alone as well, you don't have any family members anymore, you don't have the partner anymore, everything is new. So everything will potentially feel very challenging as well. And I'm not here to say it's going to be an easy ride. It is not. It's going to take a lot of vulnerability, a lot of courage, and it might not feel rainbows and daisies all the time, obviously. Just to put that out there as well, to not give any unrealistic kind of expectations. It might be difficult, might be a difficult journey, but it is all about getting ourselves out there. So online, offline, just meeting people. And for any maybe one friend you make, you might need to meet 10 other people. So, you need to kind of meet quite a few people as well. Potentially there, you won't build deep connections with maybe all of the people that you meet. But yeah, so the second step is to meet people and make this initial connection with them. And then in the third step that I help my people with is to really build a deeper connection with the rather superficial kind of connections you have built in the beginning. So how can we, build an actual healthy and meaningful friendship rather than just staying on the surface level with someone. And
that's with people you meet in step 2, then you want to make sure it's a healthy and authentic relationship and how to take it deeper.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So, and that is what I find people struggle with a lot as well. They might not struggle so much with the initial meeting people and just building that superficial connection, but then when it comes to actually building a healthy and meaningful friendship, that's when people struggle sometimes, because building a friendship takes a long time as well. It can take up to 200 hours to actually build a good friendship with someone. So what that means is that we need to be consistent. We need to show up on a regular basis and have or spend good quality time with that person. And obviously, we can only influence what we put into the friendship. We can't influence what someone else puts in. So we can suggest to meet up, we can suggest to do nice things, or be vulnerable, open up from our side, but obviously we can't ever influence whether the other person engages with that, or if the other person chooses not to, then there's nothing that we can do potentially, which is a very frustrating part sometimes for people.
Right. And you mentioned it, you need to be vulnerable and it takes courage, but the process is also about maybe finding out what this new identity for you will like and not like. Maybe you like different things, or you'll be surprised to learn you don't like doing the same things you used to do, or you don't like the same qualities. Maybe you're changing the environments you hang out in altogether. And so it's a process of learning what you like and, who you want to be around.
Absolutely, yes. And I think especially after going through such a life-changing experience like a divorce, you really have to reinvent yourself afterwards. I believe that, as you say, there might have been things that you enjoyed in the past that you don't enjoy anymore now, or there might have things that you have compromised on in the past in terms of friendships just because that was the way it was. But now you can choose again. Now you can decide what you want and what is important to you. And in the first step, this is what I support my people, my clients with as well, to really find out what it is that they actually want now. Or like, do they want really deep, meaningful friendships, or are they actually just trying to have some fun and superficial connections are enough for them? So it really is important to take time to reflect on what is important to you and what you want out of a friendship, but also out of a friend. And obviously that will help you to meet the right people as well, so that you know kind of what you're looking for. Obviously having this kind of template or this idea of who you're looking for can be, if you use it very strictly, it can be quite limiting as well. So obviously that is not to say that you can only connect with those people, but it might give you a hint as to what could work for you, what kind of personality would be potentially a good match with you, but not to say that anyone that falls out of that kind of template, that category, is not going to be your friend. So it's just a guideline to help you really if you are taking time to reflect on that.
Right. And the more they work in step one on the relationship with themselves, you don't want to be needy and graspy. And you can make the process, although it's challenging, it can still be fun and offer something, in you figuring out what you want and then having the feelings where you are feeling connected and less alone.
Yes, absolutely. And I think what we need to ask ourselves is, do we want to give up that kind of short-term comfort for the long-term connection, or do we want to feel courageous and potentially get out of our comfort zone and feel uncomfortable for a short period of time, but therefore build those long-term connections? And it's such an interesting topic, loneliness, that I think that loads of people struggle with that. And I think that it is a very important topic that is sometimes not talked about enough. And it has such huge impacts on our life, on our physical and mental health, even on our life expectancy. So I think if you are in a position where you find yourself not having any friends or not having any connections, I think giving up that short-term kind of comfort or that short-term safety, that being in that comfort zone, to give that up for the long-term successes and connection is always a good idea, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, and it's about learning to become the person that you want to be and that you're looking for, because there's people who feel very lonely and disconnected that are actually in relationships. You can walk in a room full of people and feel lonely and disconnected, but that's where, more into step three, your honesty and authenticity and what you put in a relationship is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting that you mentioned that, because that is, yeah, it's very true. It doesn't mean that when you are alone that you feel lonely, and it doesn't mean that when you feel lonely you are alone. You can, as you say, feel lonely even though you're surrounded by people. But that's what, as you say again, in that third step, that's what we kind of work on, to really build a deeper connection with someone. Because my guess is, if you are surrounded by people but you don't feel that connection, it might be because you either have thoughts about the connection that you have that kind of keeps you feeling disconnected to that person, or that the actual quality of the connection isn't deep enough, which is again something we would work on, to really, yeah, build that more meaningful connection, so that you can feel close to someone, that you are actually physically close, like feel emotionally close to someone when you are physically close to them as well.
Right. Yeah, I encourage my client to start early in the process. I tell them date yourself, because
Yeah.
so many people, I love to dine alone. I love to go to a like a formal restaurant and dine alone. It's just an experience I like to have. I remember doing it in college and feeling very vulnerable and silly. And even when I walked in the door, I was alone, and a couple had walked in right behind me, and the hostess said, "Oh, a table for three?" And so I had to say, no, just one, but it was a huge thing in getting to know myself. And I did all that and going to the first movie alone, just even as a 19-year-old. And so I tell my clients, date yourself. And sometimes they have such a barrier. They cannot physically make themselves walk into a restaurant or a public place. They have so many thoughts about it and think
Yeah.
everyone's looking at them, but it brings up so much. And I say that's where you start. When you start dating yourself, all those thoughts and feelings, that's what we get out and start working with, because that's all the insecurities, that's your beliefs likely limiting you and holding you back.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea. And I think it is so helpful. Like you just said, it brings up all the things that aren't on the surface level, that we can't actually access unless we get into a situation where everything comes up. So yes, absolutely love that. I think that is very valuable. And I think, yeah, people, believe there is so much stigma around doing things alone, or what would others think if I would go and go to the restaurant on my own. And really, what it's so funny because what does it matter if what others think? First of all, we don't know what they think. It's just our assumption of what they think, which is really what we think. We
Right.
can't ever know what someone else thinks unless we ask them. So it's always just assumptions. And even if it was true that they think, oh, she's going to the restaurant on her own, she might not have any friends, it doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't actually influence you or doesn't say anything about you as a person. If anything, it just means that you love yourself, which is something that other people might not experience, which is actually something that they are missing. So it's, something really nice to have. Yeah, so I think it is, it's definitely a very good thing to do, and experience what comes up for you and then work through that,
Yes,
through
and you're
those limits and
right.
beliefs.
To me, it's a whole form of self-love, whether you're doing it for yourself or for friends. And this process works really in the dating scene too, how you would
Yeah.
first, repair yourself before you go out and look for a connection with someone else.
Yeah. And I think it is, it's obviously a friendship it is a form of relationship that can be very intimate as well, obviously without the kind of romantic aspect. But if you ever had a best friend and felt really close to them, it is, you do experience love for that person, and platonic, relationship, platonic love for that person. But it is so similar to dating and the friendship, or the kind of struggles that we might experience on the way. For example, if you meet someone, my clients ask questions like, oh, should I respond to, like, should I text them first or should I wait? Or when am I gonna meet them again? And should I suggest something? Or they didn't respond, what would that mean? So it's so similar to kind of the dating experience, even if it is just a friendship, because as you said earlier as well, when we think about what other people think, in the community, or even the potential friends that we meet, it always we think it always means something about us, our personality, the person we are and how we are. And so it's so important to us what kind of others think, or if they respond back to us, because we put such importance on that. And it's just very similar to dating, and I think every relationship has the kind of similar feel to it.
Right. And it's just the feeling vulnerable. Like you said, it's the short term uncomfortableness of getting through it, but the reward is a
Yeah.
huge payoff when you do end up feeling the connection, and you won't feel lonely, and self-love comes out of this whole process, and it's magical on the other end.
Yeah. And as you said, it's fun as well. It's not just daunting and and horrible. You get to meet people, you get to have fun doing activities, doing things that you maybe always wanted to try, and you can finally give it a go and actually meet some like-minded people, and you tell each other jokes, and it is amazing, like the connection that if we connect with someone, if we socialize, because we are social, we are humans, we need that social interaction. It actually fulfills us on such a deep level, that experience of socializing and getting on with someone and actually feeling, oh, we've got so much in common, and I really like you. That is an incredible feeling, and it is definitely worth worrying over the first friendship date, or worrying what to say or what to wear. It is, if you have that connection and if you have that feeling and that fulfillment, it is definitely worth the short-term discomfort.
This is incredible work you are doing, Sarah. I was so excited. The friendship
Thank you.
coach, so perfect. I will
Thank
have
you.
all of your information in the show notes, but where would you say would be the best place someone could contact you if they wanted to work with you on friendships?
Yes. So I'm mainly active on Instagram. If you have Instagram, come and find me over there. It's friendships, friendships.abroad, sorry. And I do have a website as well if you want to have a look. So the link will be, as Jenny said, in the show notes, but it is sarah.lifecoach.webnode.page. So yeah, it might be easier to click on the link in the show notes or have a look on Instagram and send me a message, or yeah, connect with me if you find me there.
And I want to clarify, if someone has not moved abroad, and say it is someone listening that's, still in the United States and wants to maybe going through divorce, or not even, do you work with those people as well?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, there wouldn't be a reason for me to say no, absolutely not. I think, as we said, there are so many similarities that yeah, I'm definitely happy to work with anyone who is still in the United States or hasn't moved abroad. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being here, and I look forward to hearing about all of your progress.